Okay, we are on week 4, chapter 2 of the book of John. We are moving through slowly, but that's how we do things here. We don't rush through scriptures. We savor them. They're like delicacies. Okay, so before we get started on today, which is called New Wine, and we'll show you what that means in a minute, I want to kind of do a little bit more of a level set. I've already begun this, so just remind those of you who maybe have slept and forgotten, the Gospel of John was written last, and it was written a lot of years after the first 3 Gospels. The first 3 Gospels are called synoptic. If you didn't, she'll fix it. Just have a seat. You're fine. She's gonna limp over here and do whatever she's gonna do. Just let her go. It's just easier. There's the right way, there's the wrong way, and then there's Vica's way. Yeah, so just let Vica be Vica. That's fine. Yeah, I know. I noticed. That's good. She's limping her way over there. Let her do it. Okay, where was I? So the Synoptic Gospels, which are the 3 Gospels that basically tell the same pattern of the stories, are Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And then John comes along later. Now, he would have read all those. He would know them. And yet he was inspired to write it. And don't be nervous about this, because I've heard this. I saw this cartoon once with Jesus sitting on a rock, and he's talking to his disciples, and the cartoon captured red. Now, I want you guys to pay attention. I don't want 4 different versions of this when I'm done. All right? It's not that, right? It's that they're witnesses, and if you've ever seen a courtroom drama, witnesses remember things differently, not because they saw them differently, but because they came from a different point of view. You know, they'll see things differently. When Victoria and I walk into a room, I'm more likely to notice something like, well, that cabinet's hanging a little bit crooked. She's more likely to notice the cobwebs in the corner, right? We saw the same room, but we see it differently, right? And so that's what happened. When John comes along, he says, okay, those are fine, but I have some burdens on my heart that I want to tell you about Jesus and his time here that isn't the same as those. So his whole perspective is different. He comes along later. He knows those exist, and so he deliberately doesn't try to tell the same story. There's very few things that are in all 4 Gospels. There are a couple, but very few things are in all 4 Gospels, and that's deliberate. That's by design. That's how John designed it. One of the chief things that he does differently is he handles miracles differently. They're just different in the book of John. And we're going to start seeing that today because we're going to deal with the miracle here. But the miracles in the other Gospels, right, the Synoptic Gospels, they have lots of them. Matthew alone has over 20. Mark, he likes to jam them together because Mark likes words like immediately, thereafter, boom, 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 boom. It's just one after the other. And Luke, he's a little bit more careful, but he still brings all these things in. Now, the word they use for miracle is the Greek word dynamis, which we get the word dynamite from. It's power. It's explosive power. That's what the miracles are. And you'll see that they have an impact on the crowds that they're done for. Now, oftentimes that impact turns into a conflict because Jesus does something or says something that bothers the religious elite. But you get this idea that in the Synoptic Gospels, I can't speak today, must be that donut. I got donut tongue. But the Synoptic Gospels, like there's a moment of splash of power that's disturbing the religious structure of the day. It's like blowing it apart, miracle by miracle, right? That's kind of what you get an idea for. It's this powerful thing. And you see that, like in Mark, when the Sabbath had come, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many hearing him were astonished, saying, where did this man get these things? What wisdom is this which was given to him, and such mighty works that are performed by his hands? The people are seeing the miracles, and they're mighty, and they're powerful, and it must mean he's somebody special. We've never seen anything like this before. That's the Synoptic Gospels. John comes along and sees it differently. He sees it as signs. The word he uses is actually semeion, which is Greek for signs. He doesn't use the word dynamis because to him, it's not that he was doing the miracles just to disrupt things, but Jesus was doing specific miracles to show you some truth he was trying to teach, right? As he kind of looks back on it and says, oh, Jesus was actually showing us something here. It's a sign. It's a sign. Now, signs and miracles are different, right? We know that, or we should know that. Signs are different. A miracle says, look what God can do. Looky, there's God. Look at what he did. That's amazing. That's great. A sign says, look who God is. Right? It's pointing to some character of God. It's pointing to some attribute of God. And so it's not that the synoptic gospels are wrong. It's just they're different. A sign is not the same thing as what we should be looking towards. And here comes my slide from last night. So I had a vote on this. Victoria said, do not show this slide. And Pete says, you've got to show this slide. And I like the slides because I think it gets the point across, the idea of the sign, right? So if you see this sign on the road, Rest Our Wamau, you don't stop at that sign to pee, okay? Because that's not where we're heading, right? It's a mile from here. Let's not get this mixed. Unless you're a dog, you don't stop here. We're going to stop a mile from here. We're missing the whole point of the sign if we focus on the sign. Oh, here we are. No, and that's what John's trying to say. These signs to Jesus is pointing to something else. Let's not miss that. Let's not get so caught up in the sign that we forget what it's actually pointing to. Okay, we handle that one. Moving on. There's actually only 7 miracles in the Gospel of John. 7, that's it. And I'm going to reserve the right to explain these differently when we come to them, but I'm going to rip them through right now because I can see right off the top just looking at them. These are some of the things these signs are pointing to. The first one is one we're going to talk about today, which is the miracle of turning water into wine, which only shows up in the Gospel of John, by the way. And we'll talk about that in detail, what that points to. That's what the whole sermon's about. We'll skip that one. But then he's going to heal the official son in John 4, and he does that with just his word, right? Which shows that he has sovereign power over everything, including time and space. He's not limited by human limitations. Then he heals a man at the pool of Bethesda in John chapter 5. If those cameras aren't working, they're just not working. I don't know what to do. You can try restarting them. I don't know, but we've had problems with that. The cameras just stopped working. So you've only got this camera over here now. This one stopped. So I have to stay over here. Was that? Yeah, they both keep glitching out. Yeah. I know. Our equipment's old. Unfortunately, they don't make it anymore. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do about that. All right. Put that on my list of things to do. But Bethesda, the pool of Bethesda is interesting because in the pool of Bethesda, there's a belief that an angel stirs the water, and the first person in the water after that happens will get a healing. Now, we don't know whether this is true or not because we never see in the Bible them mentioning it. Maybe once upon a time somebody got healed there, probably because Jesus walked by and did this, and then he got healed. They thought it was an angel. I don't know, but this belief is there, and this man has been sitting there for years, but he's lame, or as we know from Bible study, he's halted. So he's lame, and he can't get to the pool, and because of that, he can't get healed. And Jesus comes by and says, "Do you want to be healed?" And he's explaining why he can't be healed. He's sitting in front of God Almighty, explaining why God Almighty can't heal him. This is kind of amusing in a way, but that's God. But that's Jesus showing you it's not in these little superstitious beliefs of mankind that you're going to find healing, right? You have to come to me. So that's the third sign. The fourth sign is when he's going to feed 5,000 people. But this is interesting because the whole setup is he does it in the wilderness. Now, God, of course, fed the entire nation of Israel in the wilderness with bread. And so this is showing, again, who Jesus is. He's going to walk on water, but the important part of the walking on water is, of course, when the disciples get scared, he says, "Don't be afraid, I am." And he's showing that he has complete control over this. And then, of course, he's going to heal a man who was born blind because the Messiah comes to let the blind man see. And he's going to finally raise Lazarus from the dead, which is the final miracle he does before he raises himself from the dead. So that's he's literally the resurrection and the life. Okay, so now we're going to go to the first miracle. And we have to look at this miracle with two eyes. One eye and the other eye. One eye is what really happens. We're going to discuss what really happens because it really did happen this way. But because it's a sign, it also has a spiritual meaning for us, right? And some of you may find this amusing, but this is scriptural. the idea of wine is the idea of joy. Joy in your life. Wine is symbolic of the joy in your life. And as some of you love wine, says that is very true. Get some good wine going, and there's joy in my life. It's not really what we're talking about. We're not talking about drunkenness today. We're talking about joy. But that's the symbolism of wine. It's throughout the Old Testament. We'll show you that in a minute. So there is a symbolism here going on too, because in the wedding that we're going to look at here in a minute, the wine runs out. And in our lives, the joy runs out. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's a depressing place to be. You just kind of lose all hope, and you don't really want to get moving in the morning, and depression kind of sets in when the joy runs out. That's what we're going to be talking about symbolically today. And that's the best we can do, Rebecca. If that doesn't start back up, then you should have been here, is all I can tell everybody. That's just what happens. Okay, so here we go. The wedding in Cana. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee. Now, we're not clear. There's two ways of reading what I just said. It could be that John's telling the story because he picked up in John 1. He's going on to John 2, and 3 days later, he's basically 3 days later, there was a wedding in Cana. Some historians believe he's actually talking about the third day of the wedding. Like the wedding feast goes on for 3 days. In fact, it goes on for longer than that in the Old Testament, which is incredible to me. I've done weddings. I've done a lot of weddings. I've been to a lot of weddings. You know, it's occupational hazard. And I'd have to say there are some weddings I've been to that were okay. You know, the wedding reception afterwards was kind of interesting and fun, and that was great. And there's been some I've been bored out of my mind. But I have never been at any wedding that I wanted to last for 3 days. I just have never seen that. You can only do that chicken dance so many times, you know. I mean, there's only, the cookie table runs out. 3 days. But anyway, for a long time, because in those days there was no celebration. You know, they're being ruled by Rome, but they're allowed to have their celebrations for the weddings. Rome's like really kept some of these things under tight control, but not weddings. You have to let people celebrate their weddings. And so this was a chance for the people to get out, you know, put on the nice clothes, go dance, have fun with your relatives. It's entertainment. It's something you can do. You know, they didn't have football games, hockey games, or Netflix. They had weddings. This was it. And because of that, every family in the area who would host a wedding knew it was their responsibility not just to see their young couples get married, but to entertain the entire village, or at least all their relatives in the village, while they were doing it. Because everybody would take their turn, right? Because the weddings go around. And you know, the Smiths had a really nice wedding. Actually, Goldbergs, I guess, because they were Jewish. The Goldbergs had a nice wedding, you know. And so we got to have a wedding like the Goldbergs, and we can't have a wedding worse than the Goldbergs because it'll shame the family. So there's a lot of that shaming the family thing that goes on in Jewish culture and other cultures too, but especially that one. And so this was a big moment for them, this young couple just starting out. Now, I don't know if you've ever been that young couple starting out, but this is very common today where couples end up paying for their own weddings. It's really a burden on young couples when you look at the bill. It's like, wow. You're going to start with a bill for your wedding that would pay for a house almost, you know. And but this is how it happens. You know, the bride sits down of all her friends she wants, and then the bride's mom sits down with a list of relatives you must invite. I don't want to invite Aunt Edith. She's weird. Well, you have to, and she's married again. So that's 2 husbands for her and 4 children. But her children are stupid. Yes, they are, but we got invited to their wedding, and your dad got drunk there, so you're going to have to invite them too. You know, this is how it works, right? And before you know it, you're spending, you know, whatever it is today, I don't know. Last time I did a wedding for somebody, it was $50 a plate. It's probably like $150 now. But you're spending all this money on people you don't even want there, but you have to. And you get forced into it, you know, why? Because of family pride. That's what's going on here too, only it's not just a family, it's the entire village of families. And so that's the setup. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Interesting little detail there, the mother of Jesus. He doesn't name her, but we know, Mary. I think this is before she was a saint, though, but Saint Mary was there. Now, both Jesus and his disciples were invited. He doesn't have all his disciples yet, by the way, but a group of them already with him. And when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." Okay. This is interesting that Mary sees it first, which seems to indicate, plus the fact Jesus is there, this is a relative of theirs. And it almost seems like Mary is one of those Jewish mothers who's helping at the wedding. And she notices they're out of wine. Now, this is not like the last wine was poured in a cup out of wine. This was the steward had given the wine to the waiters and waitresses who were walking around and filling cups up, and they had run out of wine as they filled the last carafe, right? So we still have some wine, but it's going to go fast. And Mary sees it, and this is a problem. This is going to be humiliation for that couple and for the entire family of which Mary is part. And she says, this is a problem. Now, that's a bad problem. But why does she come to Jesus and say something about it? Yeah. She comes to Jesus and says, hey, your cousin doesn't have any more wine. Now, I don't picture Jesus and his disciples just sitting there drinking much wine. They're just sipping it. Well, it wasn't us. We didn't drink much. I'm still on my first cup. But she said, they're out of wine. Now, that's an interesting thing that I wouldn't have thought to do, right? Because this is a celebration, and there's a feast, and there's wine flowing, and come on, let's be honest, there's a lot of drunk people there right now, right? And it's basically saying, we don't have enough wine to get everybody drunk, Jesus. like that should be something that we're terribly, terribly worried about. But this crisis is a real crisis, right? But I want you to show you that this is really not, and I don't always preach this sermon, this is really not sinful behavior on anybody's part. A lot of times I'm preaching about, this person sinned, and you shouldn't have sinned like this. But this isn't that. In this scenario, no one's done anything wrong. A couple maybe stretched themselves beyond where they're supposed to, but their heart was in it. They're trying to take care of everybody. It just turns out that their relatives can really drink, a lot more than they thought they did. Probably some Irish people snuck in, But that's a problem, right? But this is a problem I think we can relate to, because a lot of people sitting out there right now aren't in some kind of sinful rebellion, but you are in some kind of a problem, right? It wasn't my fault, but I have this problem anyway, right? Not more rebellion, just quiet depletion. The joys run out. This usually happens when Christians have extended themselves too far. I really worry sometimes when I see new Christians get on fire for the Lord, because, man, can they burn out quickly? Because they're just so excited. They want to do it. And it's a great thing to want to do. But there's a lot of people out there that want to take, and they can wear new Christians out. And they can actually get to the point where they kind of get discouraged. Corrie ten Boom has a quote, I love this, that the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. That's a true thing, because the devil can wear you out. And when he wears you out physically, you're open to attack spiritually. Now, jumping back to the Old Testament for a minute, I know the scriptures, you can have to take my word for it or look it up, either one. But there was this prophet named Elijah, and he had an amazing day. The best day in the Bible, I just think. He had a showdown on Mount Carmel between him and all the false prophets. There were 1,000 of them, from Baal and Asherah. They all have this big showdown on Mount Carmel where they set up 2 different altars, and whoever's God can bring down fire and light that altar is the real God, right? And he gives them hours, they can't do it. And then he soaks his with water, and God lights that. And there's something about calling fire out of heaven that is a gift of the Spirit I want. That's if you could give me a spiritual gift, I don't need to speak in tongues, but I would love to call fire down out of heaven. That'd be great. And Elijah seems to be able to do it, because this is not the only time he does it. It's like one of his gifts of the Spirit. Fire, boom, cool. And he does it. And the entire people come back to God at that moment. There's this huge revival when they see that. They actually kill all the prophets. And the king is like, whoa. And he goes running home to tell his wife, who's really in charge of the kingdom at this point, a woman named Jezebel. Those were her idols and her false prophets. And he goes home to say, well, you're going to believe what Jehovah just did. And the entire country saw it. So we need to get rid of all these Baals and Ashereths. We need to get rid of them. And Elijah knows this meeting is going to happen, and he's convinced that Jezebel is going to come back to God. She has no choice to come back to God. She's never been there, but she's going to come to God, because you can't. How can you ignore this? So he's so caught up in the Spirit that he runs to the palace, and he runs so fast he outruns the chariots and gets there first. This is great, but it depletes him physically. When he gets to the palace, although the Bible doesn't tell us, we'll see later, he's exhausted physically. But he's there because he wants to hear her mea culpa. He wants to hear her repentance. And then he can say, finally, I've accomplished what I want to do. I brought Israel back to Jehovah. Only she doesn't do that because evil people don't. Deceived people don't. What she does is she sends him a little note that says, Elijah, I heard what you did to my prophets. I swear to God, you will join them before tomorrow. You will be dead too in 24 hours. Now, Elijah just stood down 1,000 prophets with weapons, the entire army who was against him, and a king who'd been trying to kill him for 3 years. He stood them down boldly and performed. I mean, it was a performance. It was great. And now this one woman says, I'm going to kill you. And he's scared to death, and he goes running for his life. What happened? What happened was he was physically exhausted. And when you're physically exhausted, the devil can attack. And fear set in, and he went running for his life. And you know how I know that? Because he eventually runs out of energy and falls asleep on this thing called an umbrella tree, and God sends an angel down to him. And you know what the angel does? He goes down and says, Elijah, have some water, dude. He gives him some water. He says, let me make you something to eat. Take some manna from heaven, cook something for him, lets him eat it. He says, here's what I'm going to let you do. Lie down and nap. When was the last time you slept? Lay down, take a nap. And he pulls this fiery sword. I'm adding this detail. It's not in the Bible. But he pulls this fiery sword out and puts it on his lap and says, I've got this. No one's going to touch you. And Elijah goes to sleep. And he wakes up and he does it again, twice. Because he's exhausted. He hasn't eaten. He hasn't drunk because they've been in a drought. And he's exhausted. He hasn't slept. Twice he does this until Elijah wakes up and says, I feel pretty good now. He says, okay, now go on. The Lord will see you now. But the first thing God takes care of is his physical needs. If the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. He will wear you out doing stupid things that you don't need to be doing. Some of them are even sinful, but doesn't have to be sinful. He doesn't care. All he needs is you exhausted. So this is sometimes your joy runs out because you're just exhausted. And it's time to ask God to help on those. Okay, so kind of got off track there, but we do exhaust ourselves with vice. Not with vice, but with velocity. We serve until we're empty. We give until we're drained. And then we stand in the midst of our own feast, watching the joy evaporate and wondering where it went wrong. Can I give you guys a confession here? This is how Victoria and I have felt at every Passover. Should be the most joyful time of the year for us. It's a huge celebration for a reason, right? Exhausted, worn out, dreading the day. Thank you all for making last year different. We had a group of people step up and said, we're not going to let that happen this year. And they did all the work. You guys know who you are. Because it shouldn't be that way. We should be joyful like everybody else there. How many times are you in the middle of a part that you should just be joyful right now, but you do not feel joyful? Everybody else seems to be having a good time, but not you. I know some of you are like, yeah, every Christmas. Okay. You know what I'm saying? The joy runs out. That's what this story is all about. The joy runs out. Okay. We know that here's the solution. Because Nehemiah says, this day is holy to our Lord. Do not sorrow, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. What you need is a good shot of joy from the Lord. Not human joy, but joy from the Lord. So Mary's the first person to see the problem. Back to the story. And what does she do? She brings it to Jesus. And I said that's kind of weird, but it shouldn't be. Because you know Jesus cares about everything. You know he cares about you in the smallest detail. You know that sometimes you go the dumbest things to Jesus, and he doesn't mock you and tell you, get out of here, come back with a real problem. He cares about you. Like I said, God's a great God, not just because he does the great things, but because he cares about the little things. But why should Jesus care about this? What basis does she have other than that she knows who Jesus is? Well, I told you throughout the Old Testament, this whole thing about wine is joy tells us that God wants to give it to us. Not wine, joy. Remember, we got two things going on here, right? Behold, the days are coming, says the Lord, when the plowman shall overtake the reaper and the treader of grapes who sows the seed. Now, this is important because the plowman does what? He reaps and tears down the wheat so they all can eat it. But he says it's going to be so much abundance that the person sowing it is going to be sowing it more faster than they can reap it. And the grapes and the wine, they're going to come in with wine so fast the grapes so fast they can't turn into wine. It's going to be that much of an abundance. This is what he's talking about. The mountains shall drip with sweet wine. These are prophecies that have been given. This is the way the Old Testament pictures it. So the Messiah is here, and Mary knows it. So she goes to the Messiah and says, wine's run out. And it's not such a strange thing to do, if you think about it. I'm going to go through this. How does Jesus respond then? Because if you read Jesus' response, I'm telling you, it looks an awful lot like this.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
That's what it looks like he says. That's really what it looks like he says. And this conversation that takes place between Jesus and Mary at this point looks weird. Just brace yourself for this, because that's what happens. Jesus said to her, woman, I love that, woman, hey woman, I'm going to start referring to my wife that way. Hey woman, what, good luck with that. Yeah. Well, I'll do it once. And Jesus said to her, woman, what does your concern have to do with me? I understand you're worried about this, but my hour has not yet come. Now, it looks like he just said, I don't care. This is your problem. This sounds like a Mary problem, not a Jesus problem. I don't care. That's not really what he's saying here. First of all, the word woman here, the Hebrew word for woman that gets translated into Greek, actually means more like ma'am. It's a term of respect. It just translates badly here. All right? It's actually ma'am, sainted Mother Mary, something with respect, you know. Okay. What does your concern have to do with me? So why'd you bring this to me? And then he says, my hour has not yet come. What he means is there will come a time when I will feed thousands, but that time isn't today. I'm operating on a heavenly clock, not an earthly clock, and I won't be moved off of that. And we see this. We see that earth does not dictate terms to heaven. Jesus lives his whole life on heaven's time. He's got a special pocket watch that just shows him heaven's time. We see this later in John, we're jumping ahead, but later in John, they actually try to take him and stone him, but they can't touch him, and it says because his hour had not yet come. You know, there's going to come a time when they could take him and crucify him, but that time wasn't here. Jesus is moving to a different time. And he's saying there's going to come a time when I'm going to do miracles in front of everybody, and they're going to see it, but that time is not yet here. So you're coming to me early. You're asking me for something that I really can't do. So Jesus moves on heaven's time, but that doesn't mean that heaven doesn't care. That's what's kind of great about this little tiny exchange between Mary and Jesus, because it looks like Jesus doesn't care, but we'll see by Jesus' actions he does care. He can't do the miracle in front of everybody. He can't walk up there and say, let me handle this, pick up a glass of water and say, give thanks to the Lord and have it turn into wine in front of everybody. He can later, but he can't now, because the time is not yet here for him to reveal his powers like that. But he does care. He cares very much about this, right? So it isn't that it's not my problem, right? But I want you to see now what happens next, because this is really important. I want you to notice that Mary does not push. Here's what Mary says. Mary turns to the servants and says, whatever he says to do, you do it. And she leaves. Now that looks like what's happened is Jesus says, woman, it's not my time. And she says, you'll do it. Whatever he says to do, do it, right? That's what that looks like. You can see that little head toss, you know, eye roll. Oh, he'll do it. But that's not what's happening here. What's actually happening here is Mary has brought the need to Jesus. Jesus has said, I will do what heaven tells me to do. And she says, yes, Lord. She's submitting to Jesus' authority as the Messiah. She doesn't argue. She doesn't sulk. She doesn't try to give Jesus suggestions. Well, couldn't you just, I'll always try to help Jesus along. Wouldn't it be possible for you just to, She doesn't do that. She moves from intercession, which is what we call intercessory prayers when you're praying for someone else. We have it happen every Friday night. We're praying for people. I want to sit in for somebody I know. I'm going to intercede for them. We're going to pray. That's intercessory prayer. Now, it doesn't look like that here because she doesn't have to pray to Jesus. She can walk over and talk to him. But that's what she's doing. She's interceding for her relatives. It's intercession. And as soon as he says his response, I'd like to help you, but it's not my hour to do that, she goes to submission. Okay. But she trusts who he is. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I understand you're working on a different time clock than I can even see, but I trust you because of the nature of you and your Father that you will do something, but even if you don't, you're still my Lord, right? So it's a really important transition here that gets missed when you just read it quickly. But she's actually submitting to his authority. Because what does she say? She says, whatever he tells you to do, you do. Hey, what he could tell them to do is go sit down now. There'll be no more wine. He could be telling them to do that. Mary's instruction is whatever he says to do, do it. And she leaves, trusting Jesus to do it, to do whatever. But Jesus could say, yeah, I'm not doing anything, guys. Just go ahead, sit down. There'll be no more wine tonight. Or go announce to the wine steward that we're out, send everybody home. Jesus could have said any of those things. Mary doesn't care. She has left it in his hands. We need to do the same thing. When we come to Jesus, we need to trust him and stop telling him what to do. Just bring the need in front of him. That's our job. Our job is not to tell Jesus what to do. So Jesus, though, does act, but he doesn't act publicly. He can't do, he said real clear, I can't be shown these miracles. I can't. It's too early. I don't even have all my disciples yet. Too early. But he knows what he can do, and he acts quietly. Now, there were 6 water pots of stone sitting there. John threw this little detail. There's a detail I forgot to tell you. There were 6 water pots of stone there. Now, these are not small. They held between 20 and 30 gallons apiece. And they're empty. They're empty. Why? Well, these stone pots, and by the way, they had to be stone, was not allowed to be pottery, were set there for purification purposes. This is part of the Jewish tradition. If you go back and read Leviticus and all those laws, you'll see. They're large stone vessels, not decorative pottery. They're big, and they're made of stone specifically because under Jewish law, stone does not hold impurity, but pottery does. And the whole point of this was that they had those there. They should be full of water, typically. This must be some kind of like a banquet hall or someplace like that they've pushed them to the side. But they also have religious ceremonies here. But now they're not, so they're just pushed to the side, and they're empty. And they're empty because they don't need them. But if they were coming in to participate in worship or some kind of a religious service, those would be set up, and you would ceremonially wash yourself from them before you walked in. This is a purification thing that was given to the Jews in order to keep themselves clean before the Lord. That's what these are. Okay, so these are ceremonial, these are ritual, but they're actually given to them for a purpose. But John gives us another detail. There's 6 of them. Does that matter? Oh, that matters. Because 7's the perfect number. God creates heaven and earth in 7 days. I could go through it. The Bible is full of 7s as completion. This is 6. It's 1 shy of completion, right? It's almost, but not quite. That's what the number 6 means in the Bible. The Antichrist's number is what? 666. He's not holy, right? The Old Covenant is where he's from, and it's God-given, but it's not sufficient. These things were how they cleansed themselves ceremoniously, but it didn't really cleanse them. The only thing that could really cleanse them was Jesus. So he's going to take these 6 things which are insufficient, and as the Messiah, he's going to show them as they could be, right? It's the coming of the one who cleanses. Everything's always pointing forward. That's what a sign does. That's what it is. And we know that the law can only take us so far. That's told us all throughout the Bible. The law having a shadow of good things to come. It's a shadow. That's the real thing. Jesus is the bright shadow, but I'm the shadow. I'm in the shadow. That's the brightness. I'm in the shadow, right? That's what they're saying. It's a shadow. The law is a shadow of Jesus. It's never the same as the same thing. These can never, with these sacrifices, which they offer continually year by year, make those who approach perfect. The law can't fix you. The law shows where you've failed. The law doesn't fix you. If someone's speeding down the road, they pull you up and give you a ticket, that doesn't take the speeding down the road away. If you get drunk and disorderly and, I don't know, run naked in some kind of optometrist thing and start slashing it up with knives like happened in Ross Strafer recently, the law will put you in jail, but it doesn't fix that, right? You can't fix things with the law. The law doesn't fix it. It simply shows you where you're wrong, right? So that's what Hebrews is saying, that the law can't get you there. Only Jesus can. So that's what these 6 ceremonial things are all about. So Jesus is going to give them a foretaste of new wine in the new covenant, but he's going to do it in such a way that nobody knows. This is remarkable. This is one of Jesus' most clever miracles, really, honestly. Okay, so Jesus says, okay, guys, see those 6 empty stone pots? Fill them to the brim with water. Put as much water as you can in it. And they did it because Mary told them to. And apparently Mary was a scary lady because whatever she said to do, they did. Right? So they did, and they did all that. He said, okay, now draw out some of it and take it to the master of the feast. Now, what do you think's going on in the minds of these people when they do this? They poured water into those stone pots. They dip a ladle into it. What do you think they think they're pulling out? I mean, they're going to, I can't believe I have to do this. This is going to be humiliating and embarrassing. You're going to throw it right back in my face. I'm going to get hit in the head with a ladle. This is going to be crazy. And walks it up. When the master of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, he didn't even know where it came from. The servants knew it came from those empty stone casings over there, right? And so now the master of the feast calls the bridegroom forth. Now, look, if Mary knew they were running out of wine, so did the groom. I counsel a lot of couples. The groom always knew how much everything was costing. He knew exactly how much it was, who was coming. They always knew that. It's like, okay, this is going to cost me. They're always doing the math. And so that groom's there the whole time long. He's watching. I can't believe how much my relatives are drinking. Man, I can't believe, are you on your 3rd glass already? In his mind, he must be knowing we're running out of wine here. And he's dreading the fact they're going to run out of wine. If these people don't stop drinking like this, we're going to run out of wine. Can we call can the band stop playing for a minute? What's going on? And he knows, is my point. We don't know at this point why he's being called up. Why do you think he thinks he's being called up? Here it goes. This is the moment I've been dreading for the last day watching these people drink. I'm about to be humiliated in front of everybody. My whole family is going to be humiliated, and I'm the cause of it because I didn't have enough money to buy enough wine for all these louses I have in my family. That's what he's thinking. You can hear that little tune going off in his head as he walks forward. Dum, dum, da, dum, dum, da, dum, da, dum, da, dum. Okay, so that's what's happening. I'm going to skip forward for a second and come back. And when he gets up there, the wine master taps that fork on the glass. Ding, 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 ding. Tension, tension, tension. He said, I want you all to know something. Every man at the beginning sets out his best wine. And when you guys all get drunk, he brings out the swill. The stuff that's almost vinegar, because nobody cares because they're drunk. But this guy saved the best for last. That wine you drank at the beginning that you thought was good, you wait. I have never tasted wine like this. This is the best wine in the world. This guy here is amazing. Place breaks out in applause. Can you imagine that guy? Okay. Not what I thought was going to happen just now, right? But you see what's happening? He's getting the credit, and Jesus is in the shadows smiling. He's fine with that. He doesn't need the credit. He doesn't want the credit. it's not his time yet. So isn't that great? Isn't it great that how Jesus kind of pulled this whole thing off so absolutely nobody could see it? But he doesn't discard the jars. I want you to see that. He uses them. These ritualistic, ceremonial stone jars. Jesus says, I'm going to use them. I'm not going to trade them out for something else. He has them put water in it, which is useless. Well, not useless, but pretty much worthless. And he transforms what's inside of them. Do you see the symbolism here? How Jesus doesn't replace you. He doesn't change who you are. He doesn't change your outside. What he does is he transforms what is inside of you and fills you up with what he gives you. He doesn't discard you, not any of you, not me, no matter how badly we screwed up. He still says, I can use you. All you need is some new wine. Jesus says this, don't think I came to destroy the law. I didn't come to destroy. I'm fulfilling the law. I was always going to replace what's in you with a new wine. That is always what I was going to do. See, the rituals pointed to someone real. All that purification pointed to Jesus. But you can't stop there. You can't make your religion the rituals. Some people try to do that. You've been in those churches. You go through all these things, and you don't even know what you're saying half the time. You're reading out of scripts. It's a ritual. Do this and you'll feel better. Do this and you'll feel alive. Do this and God will move within you. And no, these are all signs that were supposed to point to the one who does it. The transformation always has to come from Jesus. You can't do it. You can't go through enough ritual to make yourself feel better. Oh, you might whip yourself into a frenzy for a moment, but it's not going to last. Now, let's do some math, because I like math. No, I don't. I hate math, but this is interesting to me. Okay, so 20 to 30 gallons each. We're told that there's 6 of them. That's 180 gallons of wine. That's about 800 bottles of wine if they'd filled them up. All right, that's not just, I'm going to get you enough to get by, buddy. That's like extravagant. They're sending bottles of wine home as little take-home gifts. Here, take a bottle of wine with you. Here, pick up the little favor bag full of the those M&Ms wrapped up in the thing, and here, have a bottle of wine too. Take that home with you. Best wine you've ever had. It's amazing. It's generous. Jesus is not chintzy. Jesus is generous. It's consistent with the God in Scripture. Okay. This is my benediction right now. I change them out every now and then, but in Ephesians, now unto him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask. Bring it to Jesus. Let him handle it. Let him do it. You have no idea how abundant he can be. Stop telling him how to do his job. Okay. Now, the next line of John is the important one. This is the beginning of the signs that Jesus did. And he did it in Cana of Galilee, which is where he's from. And it manifested his glory, who he is, and his disciples believed. He did this for his disciples. They're the only ones who know what happened. I mean, the servants kind of get a guess somehow, but they don't even know it was Jesus. Maybe, well, you could do that with these stone things? I didn't know that. They don't know. But the disciples know. The disciples know that was Jesus. And I'm just thinking, can you imagine the disciples as they leave there giggling? Jesus, that was amazing. Do you see the sign? Do you see his face? Oh, he's like this. And he was like, guys, you can see Peter, Jesus, how'd you do? Oh, that was so great. Laughing all the way to the next place. That was amazing. Look who we serve. Look who it is. He didn't come here to judge. He came here to fill. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. I just think they got his biggest kick out of that, right? Signs were given so that we might believe. But what this sign whispers is what the cross will shout. The only way we get filled is by Jesus pouring himself out. Later on in John, jumping ahead, John 20, towards the end of the book, he says this, truly Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which aren't even written in this book, but these, the ones I'm giving you, the 7 I'm going to give you, are written for you that you may believe. So That miracle was done for his disciples, and that miracle was done for you. So you can see the character of Jesus. This is who you serve. Forget whether preachers are telling you about what Jesus is and isn't, because there's a lot of people saying really bad things about Jesus. This is the Jesus you serve. He quietly saved them from humiliation. He's like, no one's going to be humiliated on my watch. That's not going to happen. Not while I'm here. That's simply not going to be allowed. Okay, so summing it all up, what does it mean to us? How do we take this and use any of it? Oh, let me try help. Because some are trusting religion. They trust in the things they do, you know, whether the prayers they memorize, the creeds they recite. Some of you never did any of those things, but I know there's a lot of Reformed Catholics here. The rosary prayers you've made. All these things that religion teaches you. And if you're not feeling good, here's what you do. You pray this prayer. Say this, 10 Hail Marys, whatever. Whatever your religion is. Do these things and you'll be better. Never works. Because all those things were just given, some weren't even given, but all those things, even the ones that were given, were only given to point to Jesus. It all comes back to that. But then there's some other ones, right? They're doing these things, and they're wearing themselves out. You're getting weary, and it's not working. But there's a whole different group of people that say, okay, they tried that. I've done all these things. I'm tired of church. I quit church. Church is boring. Church isn't helping me at all. I need something else. I need something spiritual. I need to hear prophetic word given to me. I don't even need the Bible. I don't need preaching. I need prophetic word given to me. I need to find a way to make myself more spiritual. I need to get my prayers answered. I'm going to read a book on it, and it's going to tell me how to get my prayers answered. And it's, you know, whatever that is. You know, you need to tell your prayer in the right courts of heaven. That was a book for a while. Oh, that'll work. You need to pray the prayer of Jabez. Oh, that'll work. And we're just looking for something. What's a spiritual thing that's going to help me? It's a new trick, a new thing, some new thing that's just been discovered. The Book of Enoch. That'll change my life. Whatever it is, right? We're always looking for the next thing, the next secret. Because what we want is all of our prayers to get answered. And if I could just get those things happen, if I could walk around just tapping people on the head and watching them get healed, and if I could just cast demons out with the word, if I had that kind of power in me, then I'd be happy and I'd be filled with joy all the time. And I'm telling you, that doesn't work either. Because all that does is turn you into the miracle worker, and you're not the miracle worker. You can't handle it. It'll wear you out. It'll wear you out trying. Jesus is the miracle worker. So neither one of these things work. Going back to old ritualistic, the creeds and the reciting prayers, and that won't work. It points to Jesus. It's part of the process, but this doesn't work. It also doesn't work for you to discard all that and try to get hyper spiritual. That doesn't work either. We need to rethink things. And the reason you know it doesn't work is because some of you have tried all those things, and it just didn't work. So we need to be honest about that. There's an old saying that if you're trying to carry water from a well to the house, and by the time you get there, the water's gone because the bucket has holes in it, the solution is not to make more trips to the well. It's to fix the bucket, right? It's time for us to fix the bucket. We have to look at it and say, okay, this isn't working. What is? Well, let's take a look at Mother Mary, because she has it right. You don't need to do the miracle. You don't need to work harder. You just need to follow what Mother Mary did here. Believe it or not, I'm not even Catholic, and I'm telling you, follow what Mary did here. Don't pray to her, but watch what she does here. First step is she brought it to Jesus. She brought him a request that doesn't even make sense. How many of those are you not taking to Jesus because he doesn't want to hear this? Yes, he does. We had our grandchildren over at our house yesterday. They say some of the stupidest things. They do. They want to tell you something that's important to them that makes no sense at all. They're trying to tell you why he wants to put a unicorn horn on a rabbit. It doesn't make sense, Vitaly. I made you a rabbit. What are you putting a unicorn horn on it for? And he starts telling me a story that hurt my head. I don't even understand it. But I listened because I didn't care about the story. I cared an awful lot about the kid. Right? You don't think God cares about you? Are you not paying attention? he performed a miracle turning water into wine. And by the way, I hate when people tell me that wine is evil and you can't have it. And I understand if you have a problem with alcohol, don't drink it. But don't tell me no one can drink it. Jesus' first miracle was turning water into wine. Was he causing a bunch of people to a sin? That's crazy. But it's still a weird request. And Mary brought it to Jesus. What weird request are you not bringing to Jesus? Heavy on your heart, but you haven't brought it to Jesus. That's the first step. The first step has to be bring it to him. And the next thing to do, whatever he says, do it.